All right, we are here waiting for Phil Keoghan, the amazing race, tough as nails, executive
I need
producer.
power, Rob. I need power. I'm plugging in.
Yes.
I need power for the three of you guys. I
This
mean,
is the challenge, Phil. You're in the
Yeah.
OT.
oh,
Can you hook up the laptop? Laptops, power, the computing across the world.
clock is running down.
Every
Ah,
year,
Now,
millions of laptops
Phil,
get
is your
made.
workstation clean? That's what matters.
Yeah. This is
my
white collar,
workstation is
tough as
totally
nails.
clean right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Ah,
none of you listening to the podcast can see this, but Phil had to rewire his entire house to get this computer hooked up.
Yes.
ah. After making my way through a minefield of stuff. No, it's really nice to see you guys, and I have to say I've been enjoying your updates very much, and it never ceases to amaze me or the Tough as Nails team just how insightful, observant, and discerning you all are with the show. So we really do enjoy listening to you guys. I do love a lot of the assumptions that are made. That those are always fun for me because it's sort of like I want to talk back to the podcast, which is fun. But I know I really do enjoy it. So thank you. You really are in full bloom this season.
Yes.
Just that off your shoulder there. Sorry, I couldn't help it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Terrible. Terrible
Well,
joke.
we are in the midst of season 5 of Tough as Nails, and a season that we have really been enjoying. It's been very, very fun. We've been liking the Friday, Sunday bookends also, and it's been you know, a
Yes.
great group that you have. So how are you feeling here in season 5?
Well, really good. I love this season. I got to tell you, we did not have a lot of lead up time to get the show launched. I got a call 2 weeks before we were about to head out on Amazing Race, and it was like, okay, we're going in 2 weeks, and we're going to be on twice a week. And so I've got a lot of people like they're confused about the airing. They're like, is Sunday's episode a repeat of Friday's episode? And I'm like, no. They're different episodes. The good news is I just saw the +7 ratings, and there's like a lot of people who are like playing catch up. Anyway, it's going to be good for other shows that are going to air twice a week because we're kind of like breaking the mold. But I do want to apologize to viewers for the fact that extremely short notice, and then it's like, what? We're doing like a mini binge and it's 2 episodes a week and this whole thing's going to be over in July. Like what?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you to our faithful fans for sticking with us, but it is not being easy to track, I have to say.
Yeah.
Well, Phil, it's interesting. One of the things that we talked about this earlier this week was that I almost feel like it's easier to watch if I'm watching 2 episodes in quick succession. Like I've felt much more connected to these people, like I'm spending more concentrated time with them. I would say at least that part of it feels like I would like to keep that. Like let's have 2-hour Tough as Nails episodes all the time.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think also it also makes the incredible storylines that we're tracking and we're following, I think it makes it more obvious, like just how we are telling Cheryl's story or Akila's story, the arc of the characters. And as you know, that's like a huge part of what Tough as Nails is all about is having those characters for the whole season. We're able to arc those stories because with Carolina's story, where there's a great moment of redemption coming up later in the season. This is somebody who was the first eliminated, but then has this opportunity to redeem herself. And there are others that do similar things, like where you might actually question whether this could actually have happened. Like, how could that have happened? I mean, this is a person who was eliminated early in the individual competition. So I think you're absolutely right, Jessica, that you're seeing more of that story tracking because these pieces are back to back. But yeah, just I do want to compliment you guys on just the things that you've observed and things that were really important to us, like that moment with Cheryl in the van, which is one of the more powerful moments I think we've ever had on Tough as Nails. where this 55-year-old woman is talking about having lived through a time where somebody like her wasn't accepted. And now I feel like not the whole country, but a lot of the country are more accepting of a Cheryl in the world, and where Cheryl feels like she has a place in this world where she maybe didn't, 2 decades ago. So I love those moments because those are just so organic and real to what it is we're trying to say, because we don't want to preach. We don't want to be like, oh, it's really challenging being a woman in the workforce, when it is. But I mean, we don't want to like be making like these generalized sort of statements, but when you hear it from somebody from a personal level, to me, it's incredibly powerful. So the fact that you guys picked up on that, and that was a really big thing for us to have that Cheryl moment in the van. I'm glad you're enjoying that stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, I think one of the bigger story elements that we want to talk about as well, it's one of the things we've been loving about this season, and to Jess's point, has been like so nicely flowing through this 2-episode-a-week structure, is the Savage Crew of it all. And I would wager to say that like the reactions in the moment to these team challenges have been perhaps like the most upfront than they have ever been, between your Jessica, your Paul, your Akilah, just like wearing their heart on their sleeve. I'm curious, in the moment, is it like as apparent to you of how much these people are truly trying to bring every single thing? And when we have a team bottoming out like Savage Crew, it is just so palpable in a way it hasn't been before.
Well, I really loved your observation about the difference between, and I think you said it, Jessica, with the way that Jessica, being a mother, being encouraging at the end of that shopping spree challenge, where it was so close, where for her, they were just literally seconds away from a win. And had they won, then Akilah would have said, we did a great job. We did an amazing job. Everybody did really, really well. We won, as opposed to losing by 2 seconds and then being like, we did a terrible job and we didn't do the job right. Because I think then, as you had said, Mike, in Akilah's world, there is only winning and losing. There's no analyzing whether we actually did a good job but lost. Or in Jessica's being a mother, it's sort of like, hey, listen, we did our best. That was amazing, guys. Let's just move on from this and just accept that we did a good job. In Akilah's world, no, you either win the fight or you don't win the fight, period. And they lost the fight. And she was not willing to just be like, everything's okay. And so I loved seeing that difference between the ways that they both analyzed that loss as a team, and how close. I mean, you said it in looking at it, you know, there was no fakery there. That was, you saw it in the one shot. It was literally, I mean, that was a hell of a call we had to make in the moment where the straps were going over, and very, very particular with the assessment of that win. But it was seconds. It was really seconds, unlike the apples where it was. And by the way, with the apples, you were like, yeah, it's 1,000 pounds. You could not tell. We could not tell. I could not tell. I had no idea. Like, look at the boxes of apples and compare the two and tell me if you saw 1,000 pound difference. None of us did. We had no idea. We had no idea. And if you remember, Savage Crew also had left some of their baskets inside. They got buried inside with the apples, so it sort of helped fill up the box. I do want to go back to an assumption that was made by you guys and also by Andy Denhart, and I want to address the mud challenge.
Yes.
One of the things I struggle with, and I've learned a few things about your assumptions and then the way that we run things, is in the mud challenge, I made the assumption that everybody would have assumed that we reset the challenge and that it was set back to its original form. Bad assumption. You guys made the assumption that I did not reset it and that the first person running through ran through a smooth run, and that those people at the back end were running through the ruts of the people who went before. So just to clear up the point here, because they were very valid points. And I think I could have easily have fixed it while I made it very, very clear to the contestants how it worked. I could have made it more clear to you in front of the audience, in front of the cast, just so you know, after every heat, we will be resetting the challenge. And those resets, by the way, took 30 minutes. And I will tell you how it was done and how we tested this. So we took testers before the challenge ran, and we ran them through both courses to make sure that they could run those courses on alternate days, on different days and when they were rested, that they could be within seconds of each other on a reset. So meaning we run them through the challenge, we take a time, we reset the challenge, we give them a break, we bring them back the next day, run them through the challenge again. Can they run that course in a consistent time, expecting that they might be slightly faster because they've now actually run the course? But are those improvements on the two courses within seconds of each other, which we did? So we got a bulldozer and we ran the bulldozer with a set blade height through the mud. I think it was 8 inches, so that from the hard ground level, which was very, very hard, to the top of the blade was exactly 8 inches of mud. We then had dozens of plot points on the mud course where we measured with a measuring stick the depth of the mud, the depth of the water in various spots in the mud to make sure that it was consistent. No ruts, smooth level surface, etc. I think Mike made the observation that the two slowest times were actually in the middle heats. They were actually with Paul and with Carly. They were literally 3 times slower than most competitors and literally twice as slow as Todd, who was in the very last heat. Ben had a blowout because he went into the water and he, got water sucked up into his motor. So anyway, I just wanted to, because I know Andy Denhard also made that point, but I should not make the assumption that you will make the assumption that we are.
Yeah. Phil,
that's our job.
Let us apologize for not giving you the benefit. See, I kind of thought you reset it, but Mike was so adamant that this seems a little fishy.
Let's not play the blame game. Let's not. We'll talk about this in the damn van, okay?
We didn't know that.
Sorry, go ahead, Jessica.
No,
Sorry,
we didn't know there was such a thing as a mud Zamboni, Phil. Like, how are we supposed to know that?
It's funny you should say that because that's exactly what I was going to say to you. Was it is a little bit like that, but I'm going to take responsibility. I learned something from that, which is not to make the assumption, because you always get haters online. I'm not saying you guys, but other people also said something about, well, that's not fair because there's ruts in the thing. And then people start piling on. Then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, can you imagine you're the 5th person and now you've had all these people running through the footsteps and they just like go off on a whole thing. And you're sitting there thinking, all I had to say was we're going to reset. So that whole reset took 30 minutes and it was being watched very intently by every contestant. I can guarantee you that they were watching very closely. You want to make sure that they had a fair run. So there's that. The other thing that I learned something out of that. I learned that would have been an easy fix for me to just mention it on the show and just squash out any assumption that we didn't reset properly. The other assumption that I probably shouldn't have made, there were no apples in the tree. They were not harvesting apples at the time that we were there. There's nothing to pick out of the tree. Those apples came out of a freezer. Those apples were damaged in a storm. Those apples were bruised, damaged, out of shape, had some kind of insect damage, weren't to QC. None of them could ever be sold for human consumption. They were animal feed, basically. I should have said, and look, you have to be careful about how far you want to get into the weeds. Do we really want to say to the audience, by the way, there's no apples really coming out of the tree? Those apples weren't picked and put in those bundles under that tree.
In the making of this episode,
yeah.
Exactly. like how far do you want to get into the orchard as far as like the details? But anyway, I should have said
The tree of
these
knowledge.
apples are not fit for human consumption, and they have not passed QC. However, rest easy and know that none of these apples will go to waste and they will be fed to animals. Now, if I had just said that, then everybody wouldn't be like, I can't believe those people were bruising those apples. What a waste of apples. Again, I made the assumption that people would think that I wasn't wasting beautiful apples. Mm-hmm. So that's on me as well. So I learned a couple of things from your observations.
Phil, could you tell us a little bit about the selection process of why, and it's a beautiful city, but how did you arrive at Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, out of the potential places that you could have gone for the first out of Los Angeles edition of Tough as Nails?
We looked everywhere. We looked at a lot of different places. I love Detroit. It's a great working class town. Pittsburgh with the steel.
Yeah.
We looked in probably a dozen places, and then Canada was pitched to us, and we start to look at where you can base everybody, and then the drive time from a center to getting to great locations. And when we looked at the mileage and also the great tax incentive with shooting in Canada, and then also the fact that we were bringing Canadians into the mix, Hamilton just made sense on paper for both the opportunity for completely new and different challenges, but also a great tax incentive. I love Canadians there, and Hamilton is like a perfect town. So, yeah. I mean, it's called the Hammered Steel Town. It's like, yeah, it was like the perfect location.
Yeah, well, on that note about those challenges, I mean, something that we have made a note of and really appreciated as well is that obviously in the beginning of Tough as Nails, I think it was very much, okay, do this challenge to be an electrician for the day or to be, a plowshare farmer for a day. But two big challenges like that shopping spree challenge you mentioned before, as well as the build a structure that can withstand 2,000 pounds. Talk about the conceptualizing of that. You're 5 seasons in at this point. Are you and your team thinking, okay, we can stray away from that original conceit and create more out-of-the-box things that aren't necessarily occupational but still serve as different challenges?
Well, I think it's, for a contractor going to a home improvement store, time is money. The faster you can get in and out of a hardware store, like for Jessica, going in, that's money. It saves you money. If you know where stuff is and you can be super efficient when you go in there. And of course, yeah, look, at the end of the day, it is a TV show. Just like those apples didn't necessarily come off that particular tree, there is some form of simulating something that we try to keep as real as possible. Now, when it comes to the overtime, we obviously game that up a little bit. I mean, it's an opportunity where we bring things into a very tight space. We don't make the overtime into a bigger space. We try to make it more like like going into the cage at the MMA or a boxing ring where everybody's sort of crowded around something. And so, we take a few liberties there where, is there really a challenge where people are trying to grind apples out and make cider? No, but it's related. But yeah, as far as like doing particular challenges and trying to gamify the real world in a real job, sometimes we have to take some creative license with how we do that. It's not literally like, oh, on this day, they are picking apples and they are loading them on. Nobody's going to load apples onto the back of a trailer like that for human consumption. So we have to take some liberties. We're making a TV show at the end of the day. We try to keep it as real as we possibly can. But yeah, I expect to see already now we're looking at some future challenges, some creative choices as far as like things maybe that people don't know. But at its core, we are trying to plug into a existing job site and do something that already exists for sure.
So do you think you're going to stay in Canada for the foreseeable future, or do you have a new location planned?
No. We'll try to mix it up. We'll try to get to other places. And as a matter of fact, other places have already sort of reached out to us about, inviting us to come and shoot in their town.
Yeah. Why wouldn't
And I
these
think
other
you may have
cities
seen
want
that
you to
comment.
come? I feel
They
like it would be
do.
great
they
for
do.
industry.
It's perfect. And for us, yeah, we want to mix it up. Look, the only reason we really stuck with LA for the first 4 seasons was we were making 2 shows. We were making Tough as Nails, and we were making a COVID production that nobody got to see. That was such a strain on production. You know, we were the first CBS show back after after COVID started, after the pandemic, and it was incredibly stressful. It was like, you go to adjust something on the set, you touch it and be like, okay, you need to back out. We got to spray it, wait 15 minutes. Now the art department can go in and move something. Now we got to wait 15 minutes and spray that down. I mean, it was a nightmare. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to mince words about it. And so the idea that we would then take a well-oiled machine to a different city and deal with COVID protocols on top of being in a different city was too much. We were like, let's just focus on keeping it as simple as we possibly can, and that's why we stuck in LA. But I would like to see a day where we just we move around. I think you would have seen that Australia started casting for a season of Tough as Nails. Turkey just signed a deal to do a version of Tough as Nails. I could see a time where, you know, maybe we do an international. Well, I guess Canada is technically international, but I could see us going somewhere like we could go to Mexico. Like Mexico City would be a great location for Tough as Nails. So, yeah, we want to move around. It also opens up the possibility for fresh and new and different jobs, like being in Lake Ontario there with the dry dock and the steel and, you know, all of that's, you know, super exciting.
I have to imagine that you having been everywhere is probably pretty helpful in this arena. Like something must occur to you,
Hugely.
like, oh, I went there for Amazing Race, or went there for one of your other many shows. And
yeah, it's hugely exciting, Jessica, just to think about the possibilities and of places. And you know, I just came back from a quick whirlwind tour, going to Milwaukee, Detroit. Where else was I? I was in Dallas, and those cities offer. In Minneapolis, those cities, all of them, any one of them could be great Tough as Nails locations, and I've been to all of them before. But I really love that. I was gonna tell you about the running through the Home Depot Center. I had a guy who was like a top. He's a cameraman and he's a top ice skater. And he was on rollerblades getting some of those shots. And he just had a ball, the whole place to ourselves. But there was another point that you guys brought up, which some viewers also brought up. And this is one of those things where you can never truly anticipate everything. And we don't always anticipate everything. I did not see somebody breaking an oven in the challenge. Now, when other countries get to make, when they get to do the challenges, they get to see our debrief. They get to see a discussion. We're like, hey, you know what? We didn't think of somebody breaking something in the Home Depot store. But you guys might want to factor that into your rules because we didn't see it coming. It happened. It's not like I never saw it coming, but can you imagine like, oh my God, they should be penalized because they broke an oven, but we never told them that they would be penalized if they broke anything. Let's give them a penalty. What's the penalty? Hey, other team says, you never told us there was going to be a penalty for breaking something. Now you want to just throw that there's going to be a penalty. So again, you make certain assumptions when you go into certain things. I did not see anybody breaking an oven. And then adjudication in rules in challenges is incredibly difficult because let's say we had made a rule and we said, listen, by the way, if you break anything, there's going to be a penalty. And the penalty will be, we're going to take 1 minute off your time. Okay. So somebody runs through the Home Depot store and they knock over a can of paint and the can of paint falls on the ground and they dent the can. No paint spilt, but they dent the can. Is it broken? How do you assimilate that? And the other team says, well, that's broken because now that tin of paint is damaged. That's a penalty. Is it a penalty? if you knock something off the shelf and it gets slightly scratched, is that a penalty? In a store, in real life, if you break something in the store, they have insurance. Do they kick you out for for shopping? You're out of the store. You can't shop here. You just broke something. Get out. Like, it's very difficult to anticipate every single thing. And then the adjudication and the semantics of how you adjudicate something like that, you've got to be very, very careful. It's not a black and white thing. It's very difficult.
Phil,
well, if you needed somebody to split hairs, like that's what we're here for. That's what we do.
You gave $12,000 to Dirty Hands. Take it out of their money.
You're forcing me to think, and that's great. And Andy Denhart does the same thing with certain observations. I think what you know about running a challenge is, goes on back to Amazing Race when the Twinnies moved the money, and I didn't know when they came to the mat. And then people were like, how come you didn't say something and didn't adjudicate that? You can never get it 100% right. But I do envy those countries who pick up our challenges and who will probably run this challenge because it was such a great one. I do envy them getting a second shot at it and being able to be like, yeah, we looked at it. This happened. That happened. Next time, let's make it this or let's make it that. So you can never get it all right. But I think this season, I definitely learned probably better to just not make the assumption that people think you're going to do the right thing. Make the assumption that people think you're not.
That's a more charitable way. That's a more charitable way of saying, like, don't overestimate the intelligence of your viewership.
Well, no, I think you bring up a good point. It's like we know, and then the cast know, and we go to great lengths. I always say to the cast, if you've got any issues with fairness, speak up. After we do the rules, we have them all raise their hands, and they say, does everybody agree? If you agree, if everybody understands, if everybody knows the rules, raise your hands and say, I understand or I agree. We do that on purpose because we will continue to answer questions about the fairness or the legitimacy of a challenge to contestants until they've got no more questions, because we don't want them to be questioning fairness. And sometimes, I guess, some of that information probably needs to be shared with the viewer so they know that we're addressing the fairness. So, anyway, I'm really pleased with this season. I love that we have some really strong women. I think it's hugely important at a time when we're going through a transitional period, meaning it wasn't that long ago that men ran out and stopped women from running, in my lifetime, stopped women from running marathons because they thought they weren't physically up to it. We've gone through so many great changes, and there are still some people that think that it's unfair that we have men and women competing. But I want to be part of the future and change and where women will be accepted in the future, not necessarily where we're at now. There are less women in the trades. There are less minorities in the trades. The chances of minorities or women standing out against men is, they have less of a chance. There's just because the pool of people that we're picking from, there's just less good people in those groups. There's a bigger pool of men, of white men who work in the trades, who are putting their hand up and saying, I want to compete. But I don't want to continue to be a part of what the past is, which is like, we have to separate men and women competing. I want to be part of where we might be in 10 years, where there is more of a balance and more young women are being encouraged to be in the trades, and where more fathers are teaching and mothers are teaching their young girls. When you hear Yessie talking about things she learned from her father, where there's more of that, where the young girls being born today are going to be encouraged to pick up tools and work with them as young kids, like maybe boys were more in the past. I want to be part of that future. It does mean that men at the moment, as far as like sheer numbers, definitely have an advantage. There are more men and young boys being encouraged to work in the trades than women. That's just a fact. Can't get around that. But I want to be part of the change, and I think our team does. And ask any of the women if they think it's fair that they're competing against the men. Ask Akilah, Jessica, Yessie, Cheryl, you want to compete equally against the men? I guarantee you none of them are going to say, no, we want our own division. They don't want that. They want to be thought of as being equal.
I mean, to that point, it's something that I know we brought up on the podcast, is it does seem like, whether coincidental or not, the past 2 seasons have had, the first 4 or 5 boots of the season being women. Do you feel like that is a bit of, a pure coincidence? Does it come down to challenges, the people you cast? Because I think you bring up so many salient points, and I do agree that I think the contestants themselves want to show that they are capable, no matter what the gender, of accomplishing the same thing. We saw this with Cheryl versus Marcus. But when you look at a trend like that, does that allow you to question inward and think, is this a trend that I'm actively trying to stop?
You don't want to trust, you don't want to stop it. But I think it's, like I said, I don't see that women are any different than, say, a minority who is in the trade, because there are less minorities in the trade. So it's a little bit like, if you look at New Zealanders competing in the Olympics, we have amazing athletes, but we just have less amazing athletes competing in the Olympics than the United States, because the pool of the population is so much greater. So do we want to have like a division in the Olympics where it's like, okay, countries under 5 million competing in the 100 meters. So these are the best of the people who are from countries with really small populations? Or do you just say, no, this is the Olympics. It's the best of the best from any country, whether it's 5 million or 300 million. And my feeling is, no, like I said, is the men typically are going as far as a pool of people to pick from. The men have an advantage over minorities and over women. That's just a fact. But I don't want to be. I want, if and the women I know that are on our show, they want to show, like Aaliyah has, like we've had, Sarah, who was also in the final 3, and you'll see this season what happens. These women can hold their own. I mean, pound for pound, there is nobody we have ever had stronger than Akilah, and she has an unbelievable killer instinct. I mean, pound for pound, and go back to Linda in season 1 in the final 5, and she out-chopped Murph and Danny and Miles. I mean, so yeah, I don't. We're not trying to adjust things to make it so that more women are going to do better, but it is. There is an opportunity for women to excel, and they have. And like I said, that's just the way the world is right now. But where are we going to be in 10 years? I think it's going to be different.
Phil, this cast for Tough as Nails, this seems like that this is an older group than we've seen on some of the earlier seasons. Is that a conscious decision? Is that something that you're looking for more from these Tough as Nails casts?
No, I mean, I think if you look at Allie last season, 22, if you look at Rufa Lee or Michelle or Cheryl, 55, or Todd, I love that we have people literally on Tough as Nails that stretch out over 4 generations. So Todd the Toolmaker, who's one of my favorite characters ever. Here's Todd the Toolmaker. He's in his 60s, he's 58. You look at Todd the Toolmaker, and he's not going to necessarily be able to outrun George, but his life skills and his ability to work with his hands and his smarts in the real world, that practical intelligence, is at a higher level than you're going to get, for the most part, from a younger competitor. So I love that. Maybe, you're fitter and you're stronger, but how about your mental toughness, life skills, and your ability to get the job done, or that knowledge, how about this stuff? And so I love that. And we get a lot of, we get a lot of people loving on that. Where else do you see a 55-year-old woman like Cheryl leading a group of men and women to victory? I mean, she's just such an awesome woman. Where else do you see people like this on TV? And yeah, I love that we can have somebody like Cheryl on our show and celebrate her.
Yeah, 100%. This is going to be a totally abrupt and indelicate segue. But can we talk about Martin Short for a second? How did that happen? Where did that come from?
Well, Martin Short. So we were going to Hamilton, Ontario, and when I mentioned it to somebody, they were like, "Oh, doesn't Martin Short come from Hamilton, Ontario?" And I was like, "Does he?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, no, he's always talking about Hamilton, Ontario." And I was like, "Okay." So I looked him up, and then I find out that his father worked at Stelco, which is the big steel company, which was literally just down the lakefront from where we were starting. So I saw him at I saw him at some event, and I just said, "Hey, would you ever consider doing a welcome for our teams? Sorry, for our cast." And when they go to Hamilton, Ontario, he said, "I'll do anything to put Hamilton, Ontario on the map." I was like, "Great. Okay." So I was able to thank him at the Emmys last year, but yeah, it was just kind of cool. It's like Martin Short is, he would be the first to admit he's not exactly the epitome of tough as nails. Certainly a tough as nails comedian. I love him. I think he's so funny. But yeah, it's just a fun way of like getting into Hamilton, Ontario, and help to put it on the map. You didn't like it, Michael?
I loved it.
He loved it.
I adored it. I'm a Martin Short fan myself. I was just, to be candid, one of the most random openings to a reality show I think I've ever seen.
Listen, I think random. I mean, you want to talk about random? Leah in the orchard wearing a wig. I mean, totally
Mike
random.
loved that too.
Listen,
I love that. More undercover tough as nails contestants, please.
Does it make any sense? Not really. Is it kind of just us like fishing for something to just see what might happen if we would anybody just be like, "Isn't that Leah straight away?" Or would they be fooled? It's very hard to hide a tough as nails champion in an orchard. And so, why not throw a wig on? And then, has anybody ever told you look a little bit like Leah? I don't know. Maybe it fell flat and died, but I will tell you this. I will, I'm always going to try stupid stuff and fun stuff. And just, I think there's too much predictable TV, and sometimes stuff that makes absolutely no sense kind of makes sense in the end because it just makes no sense. And that's kind of why people what the hell are they doing? Was she wearing a wig for? Really? You had to put her in a wig? She was into it. I thought it was a fun way of doing things. And then she put on some silly accent. I don't even know where that accent came from. But, hey, she is our Jill of all trades, and she's willing to do anything.
Oh, no,
she'll commit to the bit.
You're speaking my love language. I love the more so. I want you juggling apples more. I want you making more dad jokes.
Impressive.
Phil.
I have to say, I think my dad jokes went to an all-time low this season. Some of them are pretty bad, where I know they're landing pretty low when the whole cast just groans, they can't help but laugh. And I'm not sure if it's because they feel sorry for me or where they actually think that the joke is so bad that it's, but I love the cast. I love having fun with them. I think it's super important also to lighten the mood a little bit here and there, because, things this season, we had some pretty big personalities. We had some heat. There was some heat with some of our characters, and it's not over yet. But what I will say is one of the very important things on our show is that nothing is left unresolved, meaning things get heated, but whether it's in the damn van or whether it's somewhere in the process, we want to show that we can agree to disagree and that people can get heated with each other, and that's normal and that's okay and that's healthy. Get it out, say what you got to say, but not to leave things unresolved. You know, what do they say in marriage? Never go to bed angry with each other. Like, you know, figure it out, accept your differences. And so that's very important with us on Tough as Nails, is that at some point, like with Murph in season 1, sorting things out with Tara in the van, you know, it's like, just get it out, resolve it, and move on. That's the real world, I think, the way we should be doing things. We got too much division where people have conflict and then there's no, like, people just can't agree to disagree or just can't agree to like move forward. And so our cast, they're from all walks of life and differing opinions, but I think at the end of the day, there is a deep respect. And I will tell you that everybody who's been on Tough as Nails, and now they've all connected with each other. They go on reunion trips to Vegas and gamble, and they have trips away. And I saw Carly was at a viewing party with Todd where all his family are wearing like Toddism shirts, and the big, you know, there's screenings, and Laren came out for a screening to hook up. Laren from season 4 hooked up with everybody from season 5. So it's a family. It's a family. And so I love that these people have all come together. What they have in common is they work really hard. They're honorable people, and we don't take it lightly that we have their reputation in our hands. You know, we want to leaving the show. We want them to leave the show with dignity at the end of the day. We're not about pulling them down, but that doesn't mean we're going to hide the conflict that might happen along the way either.
Okay. Now, Phil, we can say this. I don't know if you can, but a couple of years ago, we had this pandemic, and you said to the fine people at the CBS network, "Get on my back. I got you. I got this." You got knocked out seasons of Tough as Nails. You went through all the COVID protocols. You got on the Amazing Race plane, went all around the world. Now, we all know nobody's more pro-union than Phil. We know this. Big part of Tough as Nails. But here we got all this writer's strike, actor's strike. Phil, how many more seasons of Tough as Nails are we going to get in the next 6 months?
Well, wow. We're I just Rob, I gotta be honest with you. I just hope that we can keep
daily,
going with Tough as Nails.
5 nights a week, you think?
No, that's
5 nights
dream.
a week. I think we just strip it. Maybe we just do live. You know, we're crossing live now to that damn van, and we just we do a radio show from the damn van. And,
I think you might have to air it at 10 o'clock again if you're doing live feeds to the damn van. I think standards and practices might be have to take some oversight there.
You might be right about that. We might have to. Yeah. Boy. Look, I hope we have the opportunity to keep on going with Tough as Nails. I'm incredibly proud of what we've managed to do. You know, our budgets are not anywhere near the budgets of the bigger reality shows. We do a lot with what we have. Somebody said the other day, "Oh, you should make the prize bigger." I'm like, I would love nothing more to make the prize bigger. I would love to hand out even more money on Tough as Nails. But you know, we're living in a really interesting time right now, where with this strike and with content, and I'm really not sure where everything is going to go. But what I do know is that a reality show that can punch above its weight and be and give good return on investment, that is going to be part of the future, because we just can't, you know, we were in a bubble for a while where we were spending insane amount of money on big budget television shows. And I don't know if we're ever going to see that again. I really don't. I don't.
Yeah.
But I hope, fingers crossed, Tough as Nails will continue, and
they're going to keep you working hard.
To talk about. Yeah. And by the way, in a few weeks, I think it's August the 4th, I was asked to be on Secret Celebrity Renovation.
Oh yeah, I heard about this.
Yeah, and so I actually I went down to Antigua, where I grew up for 8 years, and was able to honor somebody. I was asked to be on the show earlier, but I didn't really have. I didn't feel, to be honest with you, I didn't feel like I was enough of a celebrity to be on the show, so I turned it down. You know, but they got people like Shaq, and I mean they've had some like really big names, and but then I found a great cause, and there's somebody that's really special to me, and I thought, you know what, I could actually do something really cool with this opportunity. So I believe it's going to be the premiere episode. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. I got to hook up with Rob, Boston Rob, and we hadn't seen each other since I eliminated him, so that was kind of a lot of fun.
All right, well, you know, try to pave
Must
it.
Be a good feeling. Yeah,
the best overtime challenges are.
It was great. It was really good. We were like bickering brothers on the job site, and it was a fun time. Got on really well. We worked out every day together, went to the job site every day together, and actually really enjoyed my time with him. It was fun.
Yeah,
I'd like to get him on Toughest Nails one day.
Yeah,
that's
your
a damn
opportunity
I want to see.
to be like, okay, time for me to get into construction. Let me practice what I preach here. Let me start swinging that hammer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at some point, you know, again, fingers crossed, Toughest Nails keeps going. I'd love to get Rob to come on and do one of the challenges. I think he'd be great at setting up something. That'd be fun.
Okay. All right. Well, Phil, thank you so much for making some time to talk to us about Toughest Nails. We always look forward to these conversations. Anything else you want to let the listeners know?
No. Again, I just want to end by thanking the three of you for being so discerning and for continuing to talk about the little show that could. And also, you know, shout out to Andy Denhard also for continuing to follow Toughest Nails and helping to keep us in the zeitgeist. I think it's an important show in the mix of reality, which is there's a lot of celebrity reality television. And I think what's great about Toughest Nails is this is about the every person that we know in our neighborhood, the people that we greet each day and all of that. And you guys have been a big part of helping to keep us in that reality zeitgeist. And so I do want to thank you. Jessica, I know you're watching like 300,000 episodes a week right now doing podcasts. So thank you for making the time for Toughest Nails. I do want to thank you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I complain, but Mike watches way more than I do.
Rob watches the most out of all of us. So.
That's true.
Come on, it's not. This isn't a competition. That we're all just
yes,
so
it
happy.
Is, Rob. Yes, it is.
Phil, I just want to recognize also nobody's better with the fans on any of these shows than you. That Phil is always going back and forth. If you watch these shows, talk about the shows, Phil's probably going to answer your questions if you have them. And so I really appreciate what you do for the fans also, because you make them feel very accessible to everything you're doing on the show.
Well, I think the fans and people like yourself asking questions and questioning the way we've done things is super, super important. And I think as a producer, if you try to just ignore comments, people are making comments and saying certain things for a reason. They're not, you know, and so I have no problem opening a dialogue and then also saying, you know what, you make a really good point. And I promise you, I will not be doing the mud challenge again without talking about a reset. That's not going to happen again. I don't want to get caught in a rut, so to speak, on that one. I'm going to definitely, I'm definitely going to talk about the pains that we went through to reset for 30 minutes on that. So thank you guys very, very much.
Yeah. Phil, thank you so much. And looking forward to seeing the last couple of weeks here of Toughest Nails season 5.
Yes, Friday, Sunday nights, 2 different episodes. And we've only got 2 more weekends left of Toughest Nails. So, wow, this thing has gone fast.
Okay. Phil, thank you so much. Bye.